Welcome to Taboo. I'm your host, Dr. Keisha Powell. On this podcast, we will have courageous conversations based on how people use their pain and turn it into passion along with their walk with God.
Welcome, 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 welcome. Thank you for gracing us and honoring us. I am super excited. Um, One of the things before I ask you to introduce yourself to the audience, I just want to throw up there that Taboo is not just about having courageous conversations, but having everyone share how they turned their pain into passion. And for that reason, it is such an honor to even just sit in your presence today. So thank you. Everyone, let's welcome the estimable Emanuela Palomeles. She is not just a trailblazer, trendsetter. This woman of God is just incredible, and I'm going to let her introduce herself to all of us.
Oh my gosh, that introduction is so not accurate.
It is true. It is true.
But thank you for having me and congratulations
Thank
in
you.
creating the podcast. I'm sure it's going to touch many, many, many lives all over the world. And it's so important for all of us to share our stories and to share how it's possible to turn all of our pain into passion, right? In every moment, in every circumstance, situation that we find ourselves in. And I think as I was thinking of some of the conversations we've had, how I can see now and thinking of how I introduce myself in my story of how every little pain, even when I was a child, kind of prepared me to the moment that I'm in today. And turning pain into passion, but then trying to find that thread of purpose to every pain too is very important.
Very important.
So I'm Emanuela Palmeiras, and I was born in Brazil. I am 41 years old, and I've been living in the United States for 30 years. So part of my story is my immigrant experience, which I carry with me every day. And I am blessed to be able to do work in that area as well. So I'm constantly in touch with the beginning of my story as I'm living dreams that I couldn't even imagine when I first arrived with my parents. But I am someone who is very family oriented. I am first and foremost, I'm a daughter, I'm a mother, I'm a wife. And my other places that I create an impact in the world are here in my community in Danbury. I'm the vice president of the New American Dream Foundation. That is a foundation founded by my family to celebrate, support, and inspire immigrants across generations. And I'm also the editor of the Tribuna newspaper, which is a publication in English, Portuguese, and Spanish that was created also by my family 25 years ago. But in all this, I am a human being that yearns and craves to be able to connect with other people and to have an impact, a positive impact in the world. But first and foremost, through the life of my son, Caillou, who is a very bright, wonderful, autistic individual that I have the honor to be his mom.
Caillou is just amazing, everyone. Absolutely amazing young man he himself is a trailblazer. How does that feel for you knowing that, you're his mom and just actually seeing his growth over the years?
I think Caillou's autism taught me a lot more than I thought I was going to have to teach him. And it taught me a lot about being humble. It taught me a lot about meeting people where they were, and also being someone who knew the balance between being stern and helping someone achieve their goals by pushing them a little bit beyond their comfort zone and being nurturing. And when I see Caillou today doing the things that he's doing, it's really, in my point of view, something that it took hard work and a lot of faith because I had to trust in God that the efforts that we were putting in were going to somehow, in some juncture, kind of connect and pin out. And when I see him today, as tall as me almost, having his own podcast, speaking to other people, having conversations. When you're given a diagnosis, when he was like, 3 years old, saying that he was going to need speech therapy for the rest of his life if we didn't follow the regimen, testing 7 of Violin for verbal communication, and now doing the things that he's doing. It's really amazing and remarkable. And it just shows that you can't let your life circumstances set limits to what you can achieve. You got to go through them, but you
Very
can't
true.
limit yourself to that moment that you're given a diagnosis, that you're given a situation, because the human spirit powered by faith can do anything.
Amen. That's so true. And going back to that, you said earlier about some of the things that you have gone through. Could you tell us a little bit more about how you turned your pain into passion?
Sure. And I think that in this past 2 years, it's become clearer to me because I have been working directly a lot with immigrant families with small children. So I get to daily meet with families that have a 10-year-old or an 8-year-old with them that left everything behind and had really no say in this big shift in their family, right? In this move. Had no say on how the move was going to happen, on what they could bring, on what it would look like. So when I arrived in this country, it was very difficult because there wasn't a whole lot of a tight-knit community for the Brazilian community here in Danbury, Connecticut. It was mainly people who were from Portugal. So we didn't have a whole lot of community supports that were in place. And we kind of had to brave everything. And my parents had to navigate a lot of things on their own. And more often than not, as I got a little older, probably around 11 and a half, 12, and my sister started working part-time and going to school at night, I became more of my parents' translator. And I think that kind of allowed me to see a side of life at a very young age that most kids don't get to experience. I joke that I learned about some of my body parts translating it for my mom's doctor, and I didn't even know I had them. I was like, what are those? uh, what is the thing she just told me to tell you, mom? All in the same sentence. But I also had to translate very painful things. When my mom was diagnosed with a tumor in her adrenal glands, when she was told when she had a stroke that she was not going to be able to possibly move some of her limbs. So it was hard because I had to understand what they were saying with my limited English that I just learned, and then also kind of taking the shock of the information I was being given, and then be put in a situation where I needed to tell my mom and then be there for her at the same time.
That was
So
a
I
lot.
think, yeah, yeah. And I think that those situations though allowed me to gain a lot of very early emotional intelligence. And I don't think I would be doing my job today the way that I'm able to do if I hadn't really had that opportunity, which at the moment felt like pain, but today was opportunity to feel the way that I felt as a child, and then also to see what was happening to my mom, and also to see the gaps in the system. Like, how dare you let a child, right, translate things like this? Like, how dare you not have enough systems within your organization to support a patient, to translate, have a third party translator come and intervene in the situation. So it's difficult, but I think that my immigrant experience is the most powerful way that I've turned my pain into passion, because the work that we do every day now, it fuels my soul. I love going to work every day and working with families and helping them connect to the community they had chosen to live in.
We're so grateful that you're doing that, especially me, because I'm originally from Jamaica, and I remembered when I had to assimilate in the American culture, even though I speak English, we use British English, and
Mhm.
it was, I remember there were words that I spelled when I went to now called University of St. Joseph. And a professor had said, well, you probably need to go into an ESL program. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. I taught English not just at the high school and college levels. Why would I need to go into an ESL program? Now, looking back as an immigrant, I realize in terms of assimilating how cultures are sometimes misunderstood. And I cannot even imagine as a child you having to hear these things, interpret, and provide support to your parent when you are the one who should have been, protected. Do you think that this is still happening now, given the organization that you have formed? Is that still happening now, do you think?
Yes, yes, because I think the interesting thing about immigration is that it's a movie that plays over and over again, superimposed over a timeline that moves. And I mean by that is the same experiences that a immigrant family from the 1800s coming from Ireland experiences
Mhm.
is the same that a family from Ecuador that came through the southern border and asked for asylum experiences. You have adults that feel like they're children because they can't communicate and they can't navigate a social situation the same way that they could in their country of origin. You have children who are able to learn the language faster and assimilate faster because they're in school,
Mhm.
and then they become supports for their parents.
Mhm.
So those experiences are the same. And I think that a lot of it also has to do with trust, because if you're coming from places and countries that have failed you, that you couldn't trust your government, you couldn't trust your police, you're only going to trust family. And then sometimes you're only going to trust something that your child said to you instead of also a third party translator. So I think that um, the core of working with immigrant communities and immigrant families is really building rapport
Mhm.
so that they can trust you, so that you can come in and alleviate the children from having to translate and alleviate the other family supports, the cousin, the brother, the nephew that's already here. But that needs to come from a place that's authentic,
Mhm.
and it needs to come from a place that is free of judgment and it's welcoming, so that we can engage these new immigrant families into our communities and help them really connect to the places they've chosen to live in. Um, but I see a lot of pain every day.
Mm.
I see a lot of people who are going through very difficult situations, and their pain also fuels my passion, because I also see how much work needs to be done and how hard it is for them to find a safe place to share their stories as they've been sharing with us. So it's really important to also be sensitive to others and
Mm.
their pain and what they're going through.
I love how you say that, having a safe space to share. One of the things I have come across in the past when I used to work within school systems, or even as an advocate, or when I used to work for both the State Department of Ed and for CERC, we had a lot of families from different countries, different cultures who were struggling. And even though now in our state, as you know, there may be translation for Spanish with some of the regulations or policies for PPT meetings or special education, I still don't see it done in other cultures. So even someone from the Asian community who is an immigrant may not necessarily understand what's going on, and getting interpreters is always very difficult. So much information is not only misunderstood, and there's, I don't, I think, and you can chime in on this with regards to how parents are treated at times at these meetings who are from other countries. The focus is, oh, they're from a different country, so it doesn't really matter, we'll just get through the meeting and make the adjustments and then tell them afterwards. How is your organization you know, helping parents to navigate, not just parents in the education system. Like, how
Mhm.
is your organ? I'm just using that as an illustration.
Sure, sure.
Like, how does your organization work? Because what you're doing, Emanuela, is super powerful, really powerful. And I want the world to know what you're doing. So how do your organization help families who are immigrants to navigate these different circumstances?
No, sure. And all of our programming is really based on our own immigrant experience as a family. So the way that we set up the New American Dream Center, it's where I work most days, is how do we become a place where someone can come, get good quality information,
Mm.
be able to also sort out the myths and the truths there are in a community, and then have unlimited number of visits throughout their journey in the United States, right? So like if someone arrived 2 weeks ago and the first thing that they want to know is, can you help me access my immigration petition through the computer and check my case status? Or can you make a copy of this passport for me?
Okay.
Because I have to give it to school registration. Something simple like that, that starts that relationship to then having an issue that they really need us to come in and advocate. So one of the ways that that clients find us is that we have partnerships with the local hospital. We have partnerships with the school district and with some of the federally qualified health clinics and other community organizations that deal with families and children. So we tell them, look, we're here also to be a tool for you because you can't be all things to all people. So if you have a client that you feel that you've hit a wall, like you described in that scenario of a PPT, that you're trying to get the family to do something and they're just not connecting with you, why don't you go ahead and schedule an appointment with us?
Mhm.
So they go online on our website and our hub. And, unfortunately, right now, we only serve the greater Danbury area. We're not something that is accessible for other areas of the state. But they go into our hub, they make an appointment, and they might make a note. This is a referral from the Central Registration Department for Danbury Public Schools. We need this family to meet with you about this and such, such. So then the family comes and we have a 1 hour appointment. It's called a needs assessment. And I'm going to say, hey, you came in through the schools, but how's your housing? Is it safe?
Mhm.
Like how long have you been here? Does everybody have health care? Do you have access to food? Are you working? Are you not working? And hey, would you want some water? Do you want some snacks? There's little toys in the corner. Your child can play, he can make noise. I have children too. And just kind of like try to just kind of make him feel really comfortable. And
Mhm.
that's when sometimes the stories will come out and then we'll start talking about more like, why are we here? Right.
Yeah.
Because I think that what's happening now in our immigrant community, especially for those that come from South and Central America, is that it's getting lost on people, the amount of trauma that some of the folks that are coming have gone through. And any of us that have done a little bit of work with ourselves or read about psychology understand that if you're going through trauma, if you're in shock,
Mm.
there's some very basic things you're going to be able to do and some other things that you're just not going to be able to absorb.
Yeah.
So
Become numb.
yes, so
Mm.
it's really important to acknowledge that. So usually I tell families, listen, I know the hardest part you've already done. And they go, what do you mean? I was like, I know how hard it was to get here. And usually
Mhm.
just by saying that and acknowledging that, tears start to come out and they start to just cry and then they tell me what they went through. Because sometimes people just want an acknowledgement of their pain. They just want to be able to be seen as they're going through things. And it's been quite the journey to learn about some of the things that are happening. We serve people so far from 22 different countries, spanning 5 different
Wow.
continents. Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I've met people from all over the world. And
Oh.
I've only had one Jamaican client. So he only had one Jamaican client and he was lovely.
Oh.
Um, I won't forget him. Like we talked for a long time. But we're seeing is that the world's on fire. People are suffering all
A
across the
lot.
globe.
A lot.
A lot of the push and pull that is generating this migration globally on a global level. It's not just political, it's not just public safety, it's also climate change. Because people are not able to farm and grow the crops the way that they used to. So they're moving to the capitals. And usually those that are moving to the capitals, I'll use Ecuador as an example. In Ecuador, indigenous people are very much so ostracized.
Wow.
So, and they do a lot of the farming, a lot of the tending to crops. So as they can't farm anymore, they try to move into the cities and they cannot find opportunities for work because they didn't have opportunities on the educational side of things. They're moving in as unskilled workers in the sense that all they known how to do was farming and they can't find work. So then they hear about this opportunity of going to the United States. So it's a push, and then the pull is the hearing of the opportunity. So we see how people are working towards, in between this push and this pull. And that's where they get torn. But the kids, though, are not a part of those conversations. So for us, it's really important to remind the parents, so you've gone through all this, but what was the goal? And out of 100 people, okay, 90 say, oh, I want a better future for my kids. So I
Which
go,
is
all
what
right,
most immigrant parents usually say. We need a better life
it.
work. Yep.
And I go, so all right, so let's return that lady's phone call.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, because that's it right there. The future of your kids lie on education and they're trying to engage with you. So let's call her back because all that you just told me that you went through, if you don't return this lady's phone call, all these pieces in the puzzle are not going to line up. Right? Because we can't just be looking at the financial gain at this moment. We have to look at the other pieces of the puzzle. The other piece that's a non-tangible is the possible future your kids are going to have if they have access to education. So just reminding them sometimes of their why can be also very powerful because as you're trying to survive to get basic needs of shelter, food, and clothing, you may lose the connection to your why, and your why is literally like playing by your feet,
I like
So
how you say that.
yeah, so it's been a really really great opportunity, also because as we help others, we're really helping ourselves.
Yes.
And we're really reminding ourselves of our own values, right? So you're really kind of just almost brainwashing yourself with the goodness of what you want to put out in the world. So I'm always reminded of my why when I'm talking about other people's why, which is always family,
Yeah.
and to follow an example that my mother left for me because my mom, she's my inspiration, everything that I do. She is my boss. We work together. But she's a force to be reckoned with. And that's the master's I want to get. I want to get a master's in Celia Palmares.
Your mom sounds like a very powerful woman too.
She is, and she's gone through a lot more than I ever had, and I think that what I love about my mom is as I got older and I found out the things that she didn't have, and then realized that she was being things to me that she never experienced.
Wow.
So how are you a great mother if you never met your parents? Like, how do so a lot of us want to give the world the goodness we receive. It's even more powerful for you to give the world goodness in the absence thereof. You don't even know what that is like. So she's done that throughout her life. She grew up in Brazil, in a foster care system. Then she was taken over by a family to take care of her, and then they ended up kind of turning her into a indentured servitude kind of like situation. So she went through a lot in her life, and to get us here to another country because she wanted us to really have a better life beyond her wildest dreams. and to now work for an organization that she started, to know that we touch the lives of about 1,500 immigrants a year in different ways because of one person, and her idea that, by the way, I have to say this because she made me promise I have to say every time, that we all said was crazy.
Oh my gosh. But you know what? I think the things that become the most powerful stories will not always, people always say, oh, you're crazy. And
Yeah,
then today you're like, wow, because you're talking about 1,500 different people.
right.
You and your mom changed the lives of 1,500 people.
Yeah.
You guys are angels. You're
No, we're
angels.
grateful. Like she says, what she says is, this is how we pay our our tithes to
Mm.
God's church,
Mhm. You
which
know,
is the
I've
world.
always believed in that. I've always believed that tithing comes through stewardship.
Yes. And
Give
she says
back.
that to us
Mm.
every day,
Mm.
so for us it's really to be an opportunity to return the blessings you receive is
Mhm.
an honor, right? And
Amen.
I actually have this pendant, and it has one of my favorite sayings in the Bible, which is from Matthew, that says, the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve.
But to
Um,
serve.
and I wear that every day because it's what my mom embodies, and what I
Mhm.
think that all of us should have that kind of approach to any kind of work that we do. Um, but she's definitely an inspiration, and she's the master of turning pain into passion. And I have learned to overcome my own personal challenges of my diagnosis of my disease, because my mom was diagnosed with MS when she was 37 years old. I was diagnosed when I was 38 years old. So we share very similar journeys, even with our health. And I get to do it with health insurance coverage. She had to do it as an undocumented immigrant without health insurance coverage. So it's almost as if it's been drawn a path to have an experience, a shared
Mm.
experience, but with more resources, and a way to really kind of like take it, to a different direction, and count your blessings.
Mhm.
But at the same time, to have that connection with her. So we're very close, and she is something else. I love her very much.
Aw. It's wonderful though, wonderful to hear not just the journey that you've gone through, but also the journey that your mom went through, and how you both turned your pain into this incredible passion. Would you change anything if you could?
No, no, because I think that is the main um the core of turning your pain into passion is
Mhm.
not wishing anything away,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that it's what personally draws me so close to Christianity and the life of Jesus Christ. There are moments that I don't want my cup, right? And that my cross is a little bit too heavy,
Yeah.
like Tuesday this week, for example, a little bit heavy. But in the end of the day, Jesus walked through his journey
Yes.
knowing
Mhm.
what was to come, and yet took every step
Yeah.
and never shied away from the purpose, because he knew that the purpose was greater than the pain that he was going to go through.
Mhm.
So I I can't not regret anything that has happened, because I have faith that God will always, it's a sometimes a split of a second, or sometimes it's a meditation,
Mm.
but there's a connection. There are moments in my life that I was going through something and I couldn't find why, Lord, why am I going through this? And then 5 years later, in a split of a second, or as I'm quiet with myself, I see the clear purpose of that situation in my life that was
Mm.
5 years past. So I just pray for that a lot when I'm going through something hard, that there will be a day that I would understand and see the purpose of it. But all of it, it's growth. right? So I just welcome it all. I wouldn't change it, anything. No.
I love how you say that too, because there's there are times when even for me, before I do anything, I like walking in the mornings. And sometimes people ask me, well, why do you walk every morning? And I said, well, it's not just about meditation for me. It's my connection with God. It's my connection with nature. It's knowing that every single moment, every step I take, there I think about what difference will I make today? Who will I impact today? And I can't do it unless the master tells me or guides me to do so. And I like that you stand not only in your faith but in your conviction, but how strong your faith is as well, because you have had to overcome so many things, especially MS. And you're, again, I will forever say it, you do it with such grace and it's such an inspiration. So what is next for you?
What's next?
The sky's the limit.
I mean, we hope to at some point be able to expand the footprint of what we do, to be able to serve immigrants across the state of Connecticut with what we've done. But as my mentor slash mom says, we're first focusing on doing what we do well, really well, in our small little footprint here in Danbury, Connecticut, where we're located. But what's next is whatever the Lord has for me. That's the truth, right? Like
Amen.
because if you ask me 10 years ago, 20 years ago, that this is where I would be right now, I would be like, nah, I don't think so. And that's weird. How am I going to get there? And it's, yeah, here I am. So, it's really, what's next is to continue to try to serve the community the best I can, serve my family, be there for my son, because I can accomplish great things. But the number one responsibility I have is to guide him in what his life is going to be like in his journey, and make sure that I'm there for Caillou. So that sits as the foremost, most important thing in my life, because I really feel that's what my mom did for me.
Yeah.
And a way to continue to honor everything she's taught me is by being the best mom I could be. And then do the community work that I know also she enjoys and makes her proud. But, that's what's next. But, I'm really honored to have had this time with you and to be able to share these things. I usually don't talk about all these things, and you're
I
so
was
convincing. No one can say no to you.
oh, I don't know about that, but thank you, because the thing is, I wanted Taboo to be, especially for young people, that there's so many people out there who are lost, and it was something that resonated with me. I've heard a lot of immigrants say, you're so lucky, you live in America, you're fortunate, you're successful. And I remembered sitting one day and thinking, why do I feel guilty? Why should I feel guilty? But what I felt more than guilt was sadness. And I wanted to do something more to show the world that there are actually people who have gone through different pains in their lives, including myself, but they turn it into a passion to encourage others that you can do it too, and it doesn't have anything to, because most people think that America is paved with streets of gold. It's much more than that. When you're an immigrant, you're not only assimilating, you're also trying to, I would say, take pieces of yourself, and you're being transformed into someone else, and how to hold on to that, and to know that your organization is out there that you and your mom created, helping so many people. My prayer and my hope is that when people hear this podcast, that there will be investors who will come out and say, hey, Manuel, I'd like to collaborate with you. We want to make this statewide, but how about this? We would like to take it not only to just the state of Connecticut, but to take it to the entire United States, because there's so many immigrants, so many people who are struggling, and it's painful to see it. And having been close to it is even more difficult to know that it exists. So that will be my prayer for you. And no stress, no pressure.
I
But just
receive it.
but just sending it out there. And so my final question is, what advice can you give our listeners to empower them to turn their pain into passion?
I think the process of turning pain into passion also has a lot to do with being humble, because it's very easy when we're going through something hard to say, God, why? Why are you doing this to me? Why is this happening to me? Why is this person doing this to me? Why, did I lose this? And understanding that there's something to be learned from that process. And when you admit something needs to be learned, that you're admitting that you don't know everything and that you may not be perfect and you may have some things that you need to work on. And for some reason, that situation is coming to you to teach you that. So I think that we cannot let our situations define us. Who we are should not change due to the circumstances that we're put in. What we believe in should not change due to the circumstances that we're put in. And that we need to be humble enough to see what is there to learn from this difficult situation that I find myself in. And if we do those three things, most often than not, you may turn out to be turning your pain into passion.
Manuela, I want to thank you so much for, not only is this podcast supposed to help others, and as you've said before, we tend to use things in our lives sometimes to become therapy for us. What you did for me today, especially, it's like just I have goose pimples, but it's also encouraging me to work harder, to do better, to serve God's people more. And I cannot thank you enough. And if there's something that I can do for your organization, please know that you can count on me to do that. And I want the general public to also remember and be reminded that altruism goes a long way. You can count on me, and I want listeners to be aware of not only of the work that you're doing, but how they could also, like get active. How would, if you needed, do you have events for?
We do. We have our annual fundraiser is on September 27th of this month at 5:30 here in Danbury at the Amber Room Colonnade. That's our big event that helps us fund about 80% of the work that we do. And we invite everyone to visit
AmericanDreamGala.com, everyone.
Yes.
American Dream Gala.
And to learn more about opportunities to volunteer and to give, they can visit the New American Dream Foundation.org.
New American Dream Foundation.org to contribute to, listen, we need to do more for everyone, right? We're all God's children. And Manuela, what you and your mom are doing, we not only applaud you, we salute you. Thank you. This is incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Thanks for having me, and best of luck with the show. I'm sure you're going to touch many lives as well. And if you need anything from us, also always count on us. And again, thanks for everything you do for not just the community, but to all children with special needs here in our state. We really appreciate you and everything that you do.
Thank you so much. And tell Caillou I'm looking forward to his podcast whenever he's ready.
Absolutely.
I'm ready to
I'll
go.
let him know. We'll have
right.
you on.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks again for joining us on Taboo. Tune in next week for another invigorating episode when we speak with another expert. Turn their pain into passion. As always, I'm your host, Dr. Keisha Powell. Contact us at www.powelltherapysolutions.com or join us on Facebook at Taboo From Pain to Passion. Remember, you're loved.
This is a production of Artist Haven Media.